You beautiful legends, and welcome to Blunt Force Healing Podcast, episode 265. Yes, 265 episodes and exactly 265 days since it started. So we are still on a streak, and I'm not planning to let it go. It's 2050, so 8:50 in 12 hours um, system, 8:50 p.m. to be exact. So well before the deadline or the committed deadline that I've set for myself for both writing and recording. I still have more than an hour to complete this one and write the blog post. Today was quite packed, I would say, well, in terms of the effort uh, rather than the number of things that happened. And as the blog post will be called probably, and this episode as well, I called it purposefully Stairway to Heaven. So today, as a family, we decided to go for a hike because the weather changed slightly. It's still very, very warm. We have, I think, above 20s in Celsius scale. Obviously, if you go a bit closer to the mountains or in a cooler places, there will be probably 17, 18, but it's still fairly warm and humid because the clouds came in and there's quite a front of slight drizzle and rain coming in, so we no longer have dry weather in Ireland in general. There is likely to be a couple of days of humidity and cloudy days, maybe some raining. We don't know ever what to expect because even if in other countries or kind of areas, let's say in the US, if you're in the middle of the US somewhere or midland in Europe, it's probably much easier to predict or kind of create forecast for couple of days ahead and it will stick. But in coastal regions or countries like Ireland, which is basically an island, the climate changes so fast that even if you predict based on the movement of the, you know, fronts and different kind of winds and obviously the pressure here and there, highs and lows, and what's the movement of particular masses of air, it if if it would stick, obviously we are good in meteorological kind of predictions, but because we are constantly exposed to Atlantic Ocean and the fronts from the, I would say, European side and a little bit from Scandinavia, which also is Europe, but I want to kind of highlight the northern part, I would say closer to the, you know, polar circle. So there are those clashes of different weather systems, or I would say masses of air that can quickly shift and change weather. So whatever you forecasted for 10 days, it goes in the bin because, you know, everything you need to recalculate from scratch again, and even that can only be dependent on for about a day or two because it can change again. So longer forecasts of 7-10 days are very unstable and unreliable for us. And so far, we were expecting more dry weather, but suddenly changed that the masses of clouds and rainy clouds kind of started coming in, and it's more humid. It's a bit cooler, but you know, but I diverged again from the topic. So because the weather changed slightly, and it's on the cooler side, so it's no longer dry and sunny and roasting and scorching, we decided to use that opportunity, and instead of going to the beach, which wouldn't be that enjoyable, to go for a hike, which we didn't probably for a long time any hike since Eagles Rock, which was quite a while ago. So we had one place on a radar, and I thought about it because it was more family friendly rather than one of those solo hikes that I do in the wilderness and seeking my routes or kind of trail. There's no trail usually where I go alone, but when I go with the family, I want to make sure that we at least have some form of trail, be it like a simple path that was, you know, created by many hikers going to the top somewhere of a mountain or a hill, or there's an actual kind of, gravel path or some boardwalk or things like that. And this time we had to drive a little bit, about 70 kilometers. That's probably about, I don't know, 40 miles, something like that. Yeah, I would say around 40-ish miles if it's your system, imperial system. But yeah, around 70 kilometers in metric system between Donegal town and our destination. And it's actually in Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. Uh, we went cross border, and while it was raining in Donegal when we were leaving, so that was a little bit worrying. Not that we don't enjoy the hike in the rain, but obviously you don't want to get wet too fast, and and spend the rest of the walk, you know, I would say soaking. So, but as the deeper we went into, I would say, into Northern Ireland area, the rain kind of started shifting down and stopped completely at some stage. So we came to the destination, which was, I don't want to butcher this name, but it's Quilca. It's a peak. I would say it's already considered mountain because the top is about 665 meters, but we didn't get to the exact top of the hill, the peak that is marked on the maps, but to the viewing point, which is not far from the peak. It's probably, I don't know, 600, maybe 750, 100 meters from the peak. And but the main point is that it's not just a hike from the bottom of the hill to the top, but it's a very long walk until you actually get to the climb. And from the car park to the actual climb that is called Stairway to Heaven as well is probably about 4.5, yeah, I'll say 4.5 kilometers. So quite a distance, and I can feel my legs, but I think Julian and Elizabeth are even more tired than I am. So it was a very long hike. It was quite dull, to be honest, because the area is not very kind of entertaining. It's mostly boglands and not many hills or kind of unique points of interest that you could enjoy. So from that perspective, it was quite dull. But regardless, it was great because we wanted to go for a longer walk, breathe the fresh air, and there was a little bit of drizzle closer to the top when we got there. But the great thing about it is that the whole trail is fairly easy to the point of the ascent. So uh, there is gravel path, pretty much the road to for about, I don't know, maybe 3 kilometers probably. So even some cars and I think buses that have a license and can go through the gates can travel there and get people a bit closer. But in general, we started in the car park, which was very disappointing because it's a private land and while I don't have a problem, and I completely understand that somebody has a private land and charges and uses that opportunity to charge people money for the parking space, so they can so they don't have to search a place earlier on alongside the road and then walk. They can kind of leave the car fairly safely in a spot that is designated for that. But I think £6, £6 was a rip-off. You know, if you go to places like Bundoran, which is a touristic kind of vacation spot, a lot of kind of entertaining stuff like Bundoran Beach. You can go to Tulan. You have, for example, the cliff walk, etc. A lot of amenities, and for a day, you pay €3 for a car park, and you go to that Stairway to Heaven uh, boardwalk or trail, and it's the middle of nowhere. There's no amenities at all. There are actually marble arch caves, not so far from it. So uh, if you want to walk there or kind of drive, I don't know, 400 meters, you probably have a coffee shop or something like that. But other than that, it's middle of nowhere. Literally, there's no town around or shops. So uh, it's not like a place where it can back their charge with, we have that and that, so you're close to those things, and it kind of makes sense. Instead, somebody just charges £6, and in euro it's probably about 8 euro, 8 euro for a car park that is just basically a gravel patch, and you still walk 2.5 to 3 hours forth and back to the viewing point, and have nothing to, like, let's say, supply yourself with. So if you forget something, there's no way to buy water or coffee or something like that, or some snack. You are on your own. So I think that charge is way over the top. Like £6 is definitely too much for a car park in the middle of nowhere on a trail that has zero amenities. That's period. But since it's a private land, they can charge whatever they want. You can always not pay and drive away. But we didn't want to do that, mainly because we came here to enjoy the trail. We paid that £6. We left the car in the car park and started walking. So the whole way was quite dull, as I said. We enjoyed it anyway because it was warm and nice. After about 3.5 kilometers, it starts being the actual boardwalk. So it's no longer a gravel road or kind of trail. It's an actual boardwalk that is built on top of the peat or kind of the bogland. So they wanted to protect those bogland from people walking through them and just build that boardwalk. I'm not sure how is that protecting the actual the bogland, because there was needed, like, the work was needed to be done, and there's actually a human-made structure in the middle of bogland, and how many hikers would go to the extent to step through those boglands? Only hardcore people really that like hiking would go there. Instead, they kind of built that boardwalk, and I've read the story about how it impacted the amount of tourists visiting that area, when the Marble Arch Caves are I would say the main point of interest, and it used to be about 3,000 people, I think, annually that were visiting that area. And after they opened the boardwalk and the Stairway to Heaven, which is basically just a continuous boardwalk but with the steps towards the top and the viewing point, it increased to about 20,000 annually. So they had uh, real problems at the beginning to manage the traffic in that area when there was a season and tourists were started pouring in. So to be honest, like, if it was 3,000 people visiting Marble Arch Caves, out of them maybe, I don't know, 100, 200 annually were actually looking to go to Kuilkach, or whatever you call it in properly or pronounce it properly, the top of that hill or mountain. Now it's like everyone can go there really, who can walk and kind of walk up the stairs fairly normally. And I've seen all ages of people going there, up to probably 75, maybe even 80 years old people are going there. Of course, the first 3.5 kilometers is a trail. Then you go through the boardwalk. It's fairly easy, but sometimes there are steps. It's supposed to be 450 steps from the moment the boardwalk starts to the top platform of the viewing point. And at some stage, when you're at the bottom or the foot of the hill, it starts being really steep and demanding. But it's stairs, so there's no climbing, there's no big risk. There are, handlebars or whatever, the balustrades, so you, you have something to keep yourself stable. You have stairs. There's nothing to really slip on, or to twist your ankle on the rocks, or to fall down really, because how much you can fall from the stairs, especially if they are not continuous stairs. They are just kind of, very much varied and different kind of direction all the time. So even if you fall from a section, you will stop at the corner of, or on the twist of that boardwalk down. So it's not a difficult trail. I read it on All Trails app and checked, and people were saying a lot about how demanding that trail is. And again, it was said that it's 9.2 or 9.4 kilometers. When we finished, it was 11.5 kilometers. That's a big difference. That's literally 2 kilometers difference between what was written and what people write, and what we measured with the GPS. So I'm not sure if they were measuring from the deeper kind of car park, where there is a little car park that is not open all the time. I think it's open when the tourist season is in full, to maintain kind of the balance and spread the cars. But it was probably 1.5 kilometers deeper, maybe a mile. So yeah, then it might be that distance. But the real car park, the original car park, the first one that you see, is actually even earlier than when we parked, and it's also paid. I don't know what's the fee there, but it was probably even 1 kilometer earlier. So if you consider people that are driving towards Marble Arch Caves and they see the first car park for the boardwalk, you need to add 1 kilometer more. Well, actually two, because forth and back. So it turns out to be 13 or 13.5 kilometers walk. So pretty far from 9.2 or 9.4 that was stated in All Trails. So it was not reliable. It was not very demanding. It was obviously ascent, so if you go up the stairs for a long time, you will feel tired, and you'll get a little bit sweaty, but not that it was challenging at all. And once on the platform, it's kind of disappointing. Obviously, the views are great, but it's not a very entertaining bogland. I would say you can see a lot in the distance. There are beautiful panoramas, but other than that, I think it's better for people to actually go off the boardwalk. While it's not advised, there are notices to avoid going off the designated track or trail, and to go by your own or on your own to further to that hill or to that mountain. I wanted to go, but again, I was with Julian and Ella, and we decided to go back to the car, because we still were quite hungry, and we wanted to make sure that we get the dinner right. So But to be honest, it's not something that I would recommend to go more than once. Once is fine. If you want a long, fairly easy or kind of not demanding hike with a little bit of challenging ascent at the end, then yeah, it's fine once. But I saw a lot of hype around that Stairway to Heaven boardwalk, and I think there was more marketing than the actual, you know, essence to that hype. I won't be recommending that to people. I might visit it if I'll be around checking Marble Arch Caves, maybe other trails, because I still want to get to the Kuilka or Kulka top and make sure that I mark it on Peak Hunter. But that's just, nice to have. Nothing that I will be putting high on my priority list. But it was still enjoyable. I like family walks from time to time, and especially after a long time that we didn't do anything to do 11 and a half kilometers, it's a decent amount, and it gives you a good kind of exercise for the day. Other than that, we wanted to get back fairly soon. The restaurants were packed in Donegal town, so we were unable to get the proper dinner in the restaurant. And I didn't want to stand in the kitchen with all the dishes and prepare anything because it would take ages. Usually over the weekends we try to avoid cooking too much. So we took takeaway, and it was not good either. But hey, sometimes you need to eat something subpar just to for your convenience, and that's what we did. And I am currently watching. Uh, I'm not sure how many of you actually are fans of any sports, but especially soccer. There's a Champions League, European Champions League final happening at the moment. Probably the second half is already ongoing because I started recording this when the first half stopped for a break. Manchester City is playing Inter Milan. If it tells you anything, if you're not interested, I completely understand. Some people just are not interested in sports or in soccer in general. But I want to see it. It's quite a final. I'm not a big fan of any team in particular, or not a maniac in terms of soccer. But I like the good games, and I always cheer for both teams. I like the good matches that are fair played, and yeah, I want to see this particular one. So I'll be wrapping up now for the day. Tomorrow there's another soccer event that I mentioned before. Julian is playing his first competitive match in under 12 South Donegal Development League. So it's a home match. Dunkinilly Football Club is coming to Drumbar, and they will be playing there. Dunkinilly is exactly the same team that I mentioned a couple of weeks back when the guys played the match away on Dunkinilly's pitch, and it went well until 3-0. And at the end of the match, Dunkinilly were able to catch up and get to 3-2, almost 3-3. So we'll see how it goes. This time it's this match counts against the league. The previous one was just a kind of playoff or a match for the third place pre-competition in Donegal. But now it counts, and it will be recorded on the league table. So I will be closing now and stopping it and uploading to YouTube and Spotify. Thank you very much for being here and listening to all those updates that I provide. I hope you enjoy those episodes, and I'll definitely bring something hopefully interesting tomorrow. But I must think about bringing you some extra topic just to make it that Sunday recording a little bit better. Apologies for graininess of that video, but the light is already quite dim, not only because of the cloudy cover, but in general that camera is not going very well or not recording very well in slightly less light conditions. So yeah, that's the quality I have. It's just handy to record it from the Mac and immediately upload it to the media. Later on, if that blog and podcast will take off and will bring some justification to invest more into production, then I'll definitely use my GoPro. But again, it takes a lot of time to record, then bring it from the SD card, then edit it properly. This particular one that I record on Mac is much handier, easier, and better to deliver to you every day. GoPro would be better for, I would say, weekly updates or things like that because it's demanding in terms of editing. Again, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate all your time that you spend on watching my videos, and I hope you enjoy it and stay with me. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Cheers.